So people want to understand why the black community, quote unquote, black community. I'm going to use that word in general because there never really was a black community. There were black neighborhoods. There never really was a black community. But I want to break this down and make it as simple as I possibly can in as short a time as I possibly can. I am going to miss dates and times and everything else. That's not the point of this video. The point of the video is to give you as much information for you to research for yourself. So let's get started. Booker T. Washington versus W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, they were raised in two different areas. Booker T was raised he was a slave and eventually became educated. I'm using the word educated on purpose so I can join more people in. W.E.B. Du Bois was raised in the Northeast in the upper echelon of the black community. Remember, I'm using that word with quotes because there never was a black community. Because at the same time, you had a W.E.B. Du Bois, you had a Booker T. Washington at the same time. So you had one that was a slave and one was raised in a family who had money. So we're already starting to see the separation between the two, right? So what I'm going to do is break down the three classes in the 9 levels of the black community, okay? So that you can understand why we will never be together. Let's start. It's called C with your eyes, right? C with your eyes, which means social, economic, and education. So when you have your social community, you have 3 levels of your social black community. The social black community has 3 levels. The first level, the very high level, is the blue bloods. Those are the ones like W.E.B. Du Bois. They have had money since the beginning. Okay, we're talking about 1800s. They've always lived in those neighborhoods with the white folk. They always been there. Those are what they call the blue bloods. That's going to be important when I get to the economic part. Okay, they've always been there, especially in the North. They've always been there. All right, so that's that level. So we're under the social level. The social level, W.E.B. Du Bois, right? Booker T down here. We'll get to that. The next level, when it comes to social level in today's time, we're going to talk about the athletes and entertainers and the Oprah Winfrey's and the people who the billionaire what was it, John Smith and people like that who are the billionaires right now. Okay, that's the middle. You don't realize that's the middle because the blue bloods, they may not be billionaires, but they're above these people. They're in the middle. The entertainers and the rappers and people who got up to $1 billion, they call that new money. See, W.E.B. Du Bois is old money. There's a difference. And you think, well, I'm rich. No, you're not. There's a Kanye West level. You remember what happened to him when he wanted to go against a certain group and they bumped him down pretty quick. You had banks talking about he had millions of dollars in banks. And they were like, you need to come and get your money out because we can no longer deal with you. There's levels to this. You don't understand the levels. Why? Because you're just watching the internet and you think the world is all the same world of black community. We are not. Now, what's the third level on the social level? We're talking social. We're just talking social right now. You have the blue bloods. Okay, that's the other level that live up there in the Hamptons and stuff like that, and New Hampshire, the first 13 colonies. You have the people in the middle, social middle. Okay, that's the new money, and that's the people you can actually see, the entertainers and stuff like that. That's the social. That's the middle level. And then there's people like me who are on the bottom level. I have no problem. I know I'm on the bottom level, the social level. No problem with that. I have no problem being on the bottom level. I know my place within the black community. Okay, that's social. Let's move to C. Remember C, SEE. The next one is economic. Back to the blue bloods. You're talking about the blue bloods, the people who had money in the 17, 1800s, 1900s. They had money. They were already wealthy. They were already millionaires. They were already living high on a hog, as they say. That's the economic level. Those are blue bloods. Then there's new money. See, Jay-Z and the entertainers you see now, like I say, Robert F. Smith and Jay-Z and the entertainers and rappers and Oprah and this, that, and the other. That's new money. New money. You say, we're just still billionaires. That's new money. We're talking about old money. They may not be as rich as them, but that's blue blood. That's a whole different level. Their family had money since the 1800s, the early 1900s. That's old money. That's blue blood money. You don't understand that. Martha Vineyards and stuff like that. That's the mansions up there in the Northeast. Yeah, you don't know about that. This is probably your first time ever hearing about that. There's new money, old money. It goes back to Kanye West. You start talking stuff about blue bloods and stuff like that, and the Federal Reserve and the Rothschilds. They start knocking you down pretty quick because that's old money. Those people who make phone calls and big stuff happens. You know about little stuff where the low level drug dealing or whatever, low level state level type stuff where they make a phone call and something happens. No, we're talking about people who make a phone call on the blue blood level. Big things happen like that. Well, how did they do that every night? I can't believe it. Yeah, that's blue blood level. You don't know about blue blood. Why do they call it blue blood? Because you look at your arm and you look at your arm and you see that you can see a vein and it's like you see a vein and there's blue blood in the vein. That's blue blood. That's old money. That's old. You don't know about that. But I'm trying to teach you so you understand why the black community is not all on the same level. Let's keep moving. Do you have people like me, economic level? I know my place. I know where I am. I know where I am and I sit where I sit in this community. I know I'm not going to sit close to the stage. That's blue blood. The next level with that is the entertainers and rappers, and I'm the one sitting further back from the stage. I know my level. People, I'm gonna sit where I want to sit. You'll find out very quickly you can't sit that close. I'll sit where I want to sit. Let me talk to you over here real quick. There are people who can make you disappear. Take you off the internet like that. And you don't even know what happened. And you're like, what happened in such and such? Yeah, they start pushing against that blue blood level. They started doing things you don't need to be doing. You're talking too much. You're saying too much. That's why the entertainers only go up to a certain level and they stop there and they don't really talk too much because they know they've been in those rooms. They talk to those people. And that's where the everyday people like me be like, you just say what I want to say. But when you start making more money, you be like, hey, we need you to sit down. I don't want to sit down. No mas. Remember Dave Chappelle with the had a whole meeting over there in California. By the time he got to Ohio, people thought he was a crackhead. He had to run through Africa. And people were like, what happened to Dave Chappelle? What happened to Kanye West? He's crazy. What about, Cat Williams? People don't understand there's levels to this. Well, why can't people just... You have no idea. And I'm not going to break this all down in this video. Last, okay, we did the social level, the 3 levels, blue bloods, entertainers, me, economic, blue bloods, entertainers, me. Then you have the education level. Now, the education levels where things start to sort of mellow out. Okay, you're educated, you're educated. You got the certificates, you got all the alphabet letters behind your name. You're a doctor, you're a scholar, you're whatever. That's the higher level. You got the middle people in the middle, which is bachelor's degree, associate's degree, high school diplomas. And that's me. right? I got my high school diploma, I got my associates, got my uh, bachelor's. I didn't get. I decided not to get my master's. Why? It's useless. Because the things I want to get my master's in is not going to help me. Because I definitely don't want my master's in psychology. For what you learn, you're responsible. And of course, the lower level are people who didn't graduate school, but they got certifications, plumbing, welding, stuff like that. I didn't graduate, but I got my GED and stuff like that. Education is probably where all of us are probably, the same because it's very cut and dry. PhD scholars, masters, bachelors, associates, GED, certifications. It's dry. So on the education level, we're probably all mixed together. It's when you start getting into that social and economic, when things start changing very fast. Because you get invited in certain rooms. Even Robert F. Smith said this in an interview. I think it was an interview or article I was reading about him. There are certain rooms. He's a billionaire investor, and there's certain rooms that he's still not able to get into because he's a black man. Let me say it again. Robert F. Smith, the one who paid everybody's tuition off in that one college, you can put in the comments. There's still rooms he cannot get into because he's a black man. Look at Hollywood, banking. There's still certain places you can't go. You think money's going to get you there? It's not. There are levels to this. What this got to do to the black community? You can't get all these people and all these different levels all in the same room because they're all going to think differently. Master P, I look at Master P and look at Master P and 50 Cent and look at Jay-Z. Master P, 50 Cent, Jay-Z. Different levels, different ways of moving, different ways of communicating with people. You could probably get them all in the same room, but they're going to move differently. Like when 50 Cent interacted with Tyler Perry to get things done, they're like, Tyler Perry, oh my God, yeah. You got to move in certain rooms. When Master P moved the way he moves, right? And then you have different people that's move in different rooms. We're not all going to be on the same page. And if it doesn't work, I got the money to make it work. So let's go back to the black community. We have this black community. We all come together. How do you bring social, economic, and education levels together along with the 9 levels with 3 classes? How do you bring all those people together? We're all going to think the same. Well, we're not. It goes back to research W.E.B. Du Bois and research Mr. Washington. And you will understand people just think differently. I'm a blue collar guy. I'm blue collar. I came up through the blue collar, which is work with your hands, Air Force, law enforcement, mechanic. I work with my hands. So I'm going to think more of a blue collar guy. So when it talks about W.E.B. Du Bois, where he talks about we need to associate ourselves more with the white establishment, that's not going to click well with me because I know the white establishment is not going to want to deal with the blue collar. It's 2 different worlds. That's why the blue collar is gone from this country. There is no blue collar in this country unless you're a plumber, electrician, something like that. But the big companies, the big 3, Ford, GM, Dodge, and the big companies that making steel and stuff like that. I'm from Pittsburgh, steel mill country. All that is gone. So what do you do now? Blue collar is gone. I'm a blue collar guy. So how do you bring all of us together? It's still possible. Like I said, this is just drunk history from Jerome A. Carter.